Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden, and this stoic, strong Second Amendment supporter right across from me, his name is Tim, and this is The Second Legacy, and thank you for stopping by. Today, we have some of the most delicious things that I could possibly imagine for you. It is Musket Day, and I'm so here for it. We've got Senator Blackburn coming out of the woodwork. We've got a G3 that's going to make you giggle because we have a retirement announcement, so make sure that you hang around for that one. Everything will be linked in the description box below, and of course, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this out as much as you can, and that notification bell, don't forget that one. All right, Tim, it's Musket Day, and I've been waiting for this for 36 hours to watch you react to this.
You were talking about it yesterday, so I'm anxious to see what you got for me.
I'm so excited. This is going to be so great. So this is coming from the Senate. We're going to dive right in here. We're coming from the Senate Judiciary Committee. This is a senator, a sitting senator. These three clips that we're going to bring forward are an actual U.S. senator. This is going to be so delicious. But before we hit those play buttons, Dr. Button Pusher, are you in your seat and ready?
Good day, sir.
I love it. I love it. Anytime that plays, it makes me happy. Well, I tell you what, Tim, with your permission, of course, diving right in, maybe?
Let's jump in.
Let's dump it. I dig this. Okay. Well, we're going to do a little crazy. Let's start with number 2, Doctor, and then we'll go to number 1.
What is the experience like of the ambulance pulling up into the bay and somebody coming into your hands with gunshot wounds, particularly multiple gunshot wounds, and perhaps, if you can identify it, even high-speed projectile AR-15 type gunshot wounds?
The likelihood of saving someone's life depends on both where they are shot and how many times they are shot. I have seen, again, although I cannot identify types of ammunition or types of firearms in the emergency department, that's not my training, and we don't know that at the time. I have seen organs shredded, aortas bisected, and obviously have seen folks with gunshots to the brain as well.
Okay, so we're starting off slow, Tim. Starting off slow because I thought it was very important to show you the angle of which this guy's going to set everything up. Those high speed velocity rounds, the AR-15, right? He's forcing the conversation to go towards AR-15s and eventually muskets.
Because of their high speed velocity bullets.
Their high speed velocity magic laser bullets.
Who wants to let him know that every bottlenecked rifle cartridge in existence is high speed, many of which have projectiles 2, 3, 4 times heavier than the AR-15. Yeah. But boy, he's focused like a laser on that AR-15.
Laser beam, laser beam. Yeah, man, like the focus on this guy on it.
He's good.
But you know what I love? He is good. Yes, there it is. There it is. He is good. You know what I love about this, Tim? I love that he sets up a gotcha question for the witness, and the witness has such a hard time doing it because it's so hard to quantify. She's like, well, I can't really talk about what wounds look like from what platform or what gun because it's not my specialty. A little side note, a very few people can because that's almost impossible. Anyway, besides that whole point, she's like, but I have seen organs shattered, organs just obliterated, brains, bones, aortas, everything just perforated. You know what's interesting about that, Tim, is that qualifies for every single bullet out there.
I was going to say,
it's not special to an AR.
Will
right.
destroy organs and dissect aortas and penetrate skulls. Yeah.
It's true. It's true. Isn't it odd how we have a setup like this? Because this is the key point here. This is all about getting this news snippet. This is all about getting your name out there. Because there's not a bill going forward. They called this hearing just to have some shock statements for clips for their reelection campaigns. Yeah. And they come out with this kind of stupidity. Oh, it's so good. And Musket Day's here, and it's coming quick. Let's hit number 3 because I want to get to the musket.
Well.
Suffice it to say that knife wounds and beating injuries are customarily easier to treat than gunshot wounds, and particularly multiple gunshot wounds.
That is correct. I'll also say that another senator made a point about suicide. Most suicide attempts we can also save. Suicide attempts by a firearm are almost universally lethal.
Tim, I just want to throw a hypothetical out there for you, and I'm sure you're going to find the connection here. If I'm sitting on a hand grenade and it goes off, is it harder to heal me than if I get a paper cut? Is it?
I know,
That's
right?
what I want to know.
And what he
Right now.
overlooks in this little statement is, and it's ironic because hands and feet and beatings versus rifles. You know what the FBI tells us? Far more people die by hands and feet than by rifle fire of any kind, including this incredibly powerful AR-15.
Oh,
crazy, huh?
Tim, that is top tier analysis.
Ban hands and feet. I'm going to get a new T-shirt line printed up. Ban hands and feet.
For the children. Hands and feet. Yep. Because for the children, because you nailed it. You are correct. Because it turns out, and not a lot of people knew this, Tim, and if we didn't have this hearing, and thank goodness that we did, it turns out that knife wounds are easier to solve than multiple gunshot wounds. It's just so stupid. Yeah. Really? Oh, okay, cool. Anyway, let's not go into that whole triangular bayonet thing from the Civil War. Let's ignore that one. Let's not touch that one. But now it's time, Tim. The moment has come. Without much more ado, enter the fray of the musket zone. This is number 4.
And not to belabor the point too much, but have you ever witnessed multiple injuries by musket, which was the firearm of choice at the time the Second Amendment was drafted?
I don't know that I've ever seen a musket wound.
Yeah. And I think the founders may well have had enough common sense to understand that in the time it takes to reload a musket, if somebody were going berserk in a tavern or at a musical performance, there'd be plenty of time to intervene, and that something categorically different takes place when an individual has access to weapons that either are or can be configured to fire rapid fire and to fire ammunition of an entirely different and more destructive nature because of the speed with which the projectile flies. So
there it is, Tim. There's so much in that clip.
There's so much.
This segment is going to be great.
Oh, where do you start with that one?
Well, I think the responsible thing to do here, Tim, is to lay out an outline and hit it piece by piece. So here's what I suggest for the outline. First, we have muskets and their ability to fire a single shot, which obviously implies we can only have one round in our firearms because modern technology has to be retarded back to that. And that's a real term, YouTube, not being mean. Then we can go into the damage aspect of a 50 to 75 caliber bullet versus a .223. Yeah. We there's lots of elements. And then also we can hit on the fact that the human prop behind the guy, the human prop goes,
ma'am, have you ever seen somebody wounded by a musket in 2023? No, sir, I have not. Have you ever seen somebody wounded by a catapult, ma'am? I have not, Senator. Have you ever seen somebody wounded by a slingshot? You know, David slew Goliath with a slingshot. Have you ever seen somebody killed or wounded by a slingshot, ma'am? Answer me now. No, sir, I have not. I mean, good grief.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Can we? I got to do this real quick before we forget him. What's the clip with the doctor behind him, the human prop? Number 8. Can you throw that up there, doctor, real quick? Because this guy's face right now, when he asked the musket question, the witness is like, nah. The doctor behind him, he's literally sitting there for like 8 hours as a human prop, is like,
yeah, he's trying not to laugh. That or he's farting. But I'm going to go with trying not to laugh. Because look at her face.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, that was dumb. That was dumb.
We're on your side, Senator, but that was a really dumb question.
Yep, that one hurt. That one hurt. I'm a prop for this. Yeah, you are. But I just wanted to say that. But please, for the love of goodness, eviscerate this man in his historical ignorance, because you are a firearms expert better than I.
Let's delve into this one, Doc. Let's start off with number 13. Number 13, folks, is the Ellis and Jennings repeating rifle. And everything I'm about to show you comes from the late 1700s, early 1800s. Our founders would have been alive and well when these firearms were being manufactured and used. So the old Ellis Jennings repeating rifle could fire multiple shots. And next we have number 14. And this is a naval swivel gun. And the naval swivel guns could fire more than one cartridge, but surely your next response would be, Senator, well, you're not going to mount a swivel gun to your gun belt. Well, you're right. So there are some other options. But first, this is one that's often brung up in discussion, and this is a good one. Number 15, Doc. This is the puckle gun. This little guy is a repeating firearm. But again, it's a little bit big. It's not really shoulderable. So, okay, let's move on to number 16, the old knock gun. Now, here we have a repeater in every sense of the word. Okay, revolving barreled rifle. It can fire multiple shots. The founders probably could have never envisioned a gun that loaded itself or fired multiple shots because they were just dumb old men in powdered wigs with pointed sticks. Wrong. This narrative of the anti-gunners is completely wrong. Now let's move over to a pistol for that bar fight scenario. And we have the duckfoot pistol. Now, as common practice would dictate during the American Civil War, many times people would carry more than one repeating firearm. So you could tuck several of these little duckfoots in your pockets and have multiple firearms. Thank you, Doc. And then we'll sum this little demonstration up with number 18. And this is our Bohemian repeating rifle. Okay. Oh. So folks, repeating firearms were in fact known about during the founding of our nation. They were nothing new.
Weird. And
our founders were not idiots. And they definitely knew technology would advance on all fronts. They weren't idiots,
That's
folks.
Odd.
But so they want to continue to pretend like they're a bunch of racist white men idiots, and therefore everything they did should be discounted.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything. All of it. Because they didn't have those. They couldn't foresee multiple rounds or technological advances.
No.
They just couldn't see it coming.
So who would have?
Who did? Who did? I mean,
I'm sure they
genuinely.
thought they'd have swords and spears for the rest of their lives. That's how we're going to fight wars until eternity. I mean, there's no way we're going to advance technologically because it's not like they saw any technological advancements in their lifetime.
No.
You know, they ran around in loincloths and stuff. They didn't invent anything.
Yes, exactly. Ben Franklin didn't do like a bit bifocals and a bajillion things. Yeah, no, that wasn't a thing. Innovation coming right out of the Renaissance. No, none of that. But you know what, Tim? I think you did an amazing job with the historical references. We can firmly prove that he is dumb.
Yes.
And now the last thing, and this one was my personal favorite, the little shock factor here, that a 50 to 77 caliber musket ball of lead is less dangerous than a 5.56 or a 2.23, which is literally the size of a .22 long rifle.
Yeah. See, mass times velocity squared, right?
It's
a simple formula. And so big, heavy bullets do a lot of damage. The wounds inflicted by those firearms of that era were so nasty that many times the wounds to limbs and stuff couldn't be repaired. They would have to amputate.
They just cut the whole thing off.
Right. And if you didn't die from a chest shot, gut shot, whatever, and you can live for a while, regardless if it was a musket that hit you or a 5.56 that hit you somewhere in a non-vital area, you would just simply die of an infection, which is a horrible thing to die from.
Right.
Right. So you get blood infections and things like that. There's a good chance you're going to pass. So the notion that the musket just was this, well, as one anti-gunner said recently, and we featured this, basically they fought with pellet guns.
It was a pea shooter.
It was just a toy. All those dead people maimed and limbs missing. You know, it's just those pellet guns. They're idiots. Yeah. I mean,
no, it's solid gold. It's solid gold, and I think you said it perfectly. They be dumb. We have deemed them dumb, and that is an amazing way.
Yeah,
they got the dumb. They got a case of the dumbs, and I think that's an amazing way to wrap the first segment because now we get to go to a different segment, and this segment is all about bringing numbers and something that you've actually said, Tim. I think this is an important piece from Marsha Blackburn because she brings numbers forward, and then there's actually other numbers about hardening schools and all those things. This is weird, Tim. This is weird. Look at this one, number 5, Dr. Producer.
But we saw okay, let's talk a little bit about those mass shooters, because we know that 25% of the mass shooters have been diagnosed with a mental health disorder. And we know 55% of American adults with mental illness have never sought treatment and never received any treatment. And we also know that 42% of mass shooters experienced physical abuse, sexual abuse, parental suicide, or severe bullying as children.
I'm sure that Tim, we're not bringing facts. We're just bringing guns everywhere agenda forward. We're not going into literally statistics that show all of these people who perpetrate these crimes have much broader issues than guns were available
she
everywhere.
Said 25% of the shooters were known to have mental disorders, then 55% of people with mental disorders don't seek treatment. Let me put this forward as an option.
Okay.
If
Proceed.
you pick up a firearm and you go shoot people, you probably have a mental disorder.
You got a problem.
Okay?
Yeah.
If you're out there just randomly killing random people, yeah, I think that's a pretty clear sign you might have a mental disorder. I don't even think I need a doctor to intervene on this one to give me a diagnosis. Yeah. I think I got this one. You know, it's like, really?
I think it's good. No. I think that's solid foundational work, Tim. But, you know, if you look at this on a argument basis, which I believe is an important piece to this, the anti-gun people will tell us that if the guns didn't exist, none of our problems would exist. We'd have none of these issues. And however, when you look at what she just laid out, sitting Senator Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee, she just said 44% or 42% of them rather have previous, no, it was 44, whatever, doesn't matter. 40-something percent had previous trauma, which led them into a mental issue. And then 25% actually perpetrate these issues, and 55% of them never seek treatment. So you've got horrible things happening on the front end, then you've got nothing happen on the back end. Yet the guns have been here the whole time. Something changed, all right, Tim, and it was the mindsets. It was not the fact that firearms existed for
since our founding and before.
Years.
But let's just go with our founding because,
yeah, it's mind-boggling when you look at those numbers and you go, why are we even talking about anything else?
Yeah, but it's so frustrating because everybody wants to throw around numbers, right? It's like polls. Numbers can be a little bit hard to get your mind around, but what they're trying to convince us of is that guns are the problem, and they'll throw out all these big numbers. But what they never do, and this is what she's trying to address, what they never do, and we've talked about this before, is they disassociate firearms from the criminals. They don't want to talk about the criminal, what motivates the criminal, because that's the real problem, is what's causing people to do this, because this isn't historically something that's been going on in the United States. This is a relatively new development in our nation's history. So the guns have been here all along. We've been here all along. So what's changed? What's prompting people to take this type of action? And they don't want to get to that problem because they don't care about that problem. All they want to do is take guns away. So they actually kind of like the problem because it gives them the statistics that they need to make the argument that we just should take your rights away. We don't care about fixing the actual problem. We're just going to talk about the inanimate object we don't want you to have anymore because that's a threat to our power base.
What's that concept? The Hegelian dialectic? Is that what that's called? I can't remember the top of my brain. But it's basically the not create the problem. I can't say that because that wouldn't be kind. Notice a problem exists and then point out the problem, never solve the problem, so you're continually needed, something like that.
Yeah,
something like
that's basically
not fixing
what they're doing. Right. They need the problem to persist. They would prefer the problem increases because when it doesn't, they artificially inflate the numbers anyway. And so
they do.
So they want that outcome so they can get the outcome they truly want. They want the violence and chaos so they can get the outcome of, hey, look, you can't be trusted with your rights, folks. Let's just go ahead and take those, turn them in at the door. And then,
That is nefarious. That's like some Emperor Palpatine type stuff right there.
It is. But it's so obvious. I mean,
it is. It really is.
Take this step back and take a look at this at a 30,000 foot view, and you're going to see what we're talking about here is the absolute truth. They make no effort to actually solve problems. All they want to do is take rights away.
Well, they want the problem to persist because then they have something to talk about. So they need a problem. Really, that's really what it boils down to. You can't really assign an intent.
And if they don't have one, damn it, they're going to make one. So
yeah, you have to have a problem, therefore, to prove your necessity. But this part speaks to something that we saw earlier. This is number 6 we're about to play.
Comment.
Addressing untreated mental illness in particular, including early intervention, getting people treatment before it becomes a crisis. This is important not just for suicide or for mass public shootings, so it certainly is important there. It's important for human flourishing. It's important even far beyond the scope of firearms. Again, we're talking about roughly half of suicides being with something other than a firearm. And so to the extent that we can get people in crisis help, especially lethal means counseling about all lethal means, not just firearms, that saves lives. And it also, again, promotes human flourishing. It promotes better communities and healthier families, and that is important on a grand scale.
I love Amy Swearer. I love that woman because she said something so important. 50% of suicides are done with something other than a firearm. Well, isn't that interesting, Tim, that they don't say that on the gun control. In fact, the testimony we showed earlier with Musket Man over there, with Musket Boy, the doctor said 100% of suicide attempts with a firearm almost are done and, effectual. Well, you kind of left out that only 50% of suicide attempts were with a firearm. So why'd you leave out the 50%, but you sure left in the 100% effectiveness?
Simple.
Interesting how you pick and chose, huh?
Yeah, simple. They don't care. They don't care about the other 50%. They only care about the 50% that used a firearm because that helps them push their narrative forward. And that's the disgusting nature of what we just watched in this hearing. You're absolutely right. And that's exactly where I wanted to go with this. It's like you literally will not focus on the other 50% and you downplay it saying, yeah, well, there's a good chance we could have saved them. Well, you didn't save 50% of them.
Right. But they don't talk about that. And that's the whole point. And Tim, I think in wrapping this segment up before we go to the G3 segment, I think this is important to note. They never talk about anything other than the effect on their narrative, right? And if we hear anything from this, listen to this, people of the Second Legacy, because what have they been saying to us over the past 3 years, Tim? Gun violence is out of control. It's an epidemic of gun violence. We're going to kill ourselves into oblivion because of our gun rights. And then when the numbers started going down this year, right now we are at a 20% decline from suicides and homicides year over year. We are back at 2019 levels, and you have not heard a peep about it.
No, actually, I've heard a peep. The peeps are saying, it's getting worse. We got to do something to stop this crazy escalating violence.
Right.
They're lying.
But that's the point.
Yes.
That's the point. They're lying.
If they don't have the information or data that they need, they just make it up.
Yep. That's exactly right. But that speaks to the point I'm trying to set up. They never talk about the other 50% of suicide attempts because that's not a problem we're solving because it doesn't go towards the gun control narrative. We never talk about the fact that violence committed with a gun is going down at a clip of 20% to 4-year prior levels. Don't say a word about it. We need more gun control. All the while, no gun control has been implemented, which would point to that as a reason. It's disgusting. I mean, that's honestly my opinion on it. It is disgusting.
It is. They're disgusting people.
That's my thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're starting, I think, to come around to my way of thinking that this is all by design, that they do this on purpose. That they want the chaos. They need the chaos. And this lady just illustrated that for us in this clip saying, 100% of the firearms deaths almost, or, in suicides, almost 100% of the people die from it. And they won't even talk about the other 50%. They don't care. They don't matter. They're insignificant because, as you said, it doesn't contribute to the narrative of take the guns away.
And
they
that's
are
the gross part.
People. They don't care about you.
That's the gross
They
part.
proved it right there. They don't care.
Right there.
It's not about saving lives.
No, it's not. And I will say, honest to goodness, if we dropped this narrative pushing above the problem, using the problem to push a narrative, and even though the narrative doesn't make sense and the problem goes away, the emphasis is on the narrative. If we could potentially, drop away from these narratives on the right and the left on any item and just look at what's going on and solve the problem, we would actually be in a better place in this country, not at each other's throats, but because the politicians and the media need views, need votes, and need control, they're keeping the problem at front of center, but they're not solving it. And this is not just guns. This is everything.
Yep.
That's the disgusting piece to me, personally.
Yep. I totally agree.
And that's how we're going to end that segment to go into the G3 segment.
Here we go. The goofy
it's Tim's
gun
baby.
grabbers. Yeah. Well, we got some gems for you today, guys, and we have that retirement announcement. So stick around. This one's going to be good.
We do.
All right. So, Doc, if you could throw up number 9 for us. This is from our friends over at Giffords. Very prominent gun grabbers. And if you guys will remember, after the most recent tragedy, they all came out and said, the yellow flag law, being something less than a red flag law, was not effective. They needed a red flag law. They needed more encroachments on your rights. They needed to get rid of due process because you can't be trusted with your firearms. And so from November 27th, we have this from Giffords. Law enforcement officials and gun safety advocates agree Maine's yellow flag law is not effective. It is not effective. We must close the loopholes and keep guns out of the hands of those who most likely will be violent in the near future. So fast forward to today, November 30th, 3 days later, and there's a new narrative on the internet, folks. Doc number 10. So this comes to us from K12, but there are many other gun grabbing posters out there that they're parroting this exact same line. Okay. So we went from totally ineffective, got to replace it, to now, since the mass shooting in Lewiston a month ago, Maine's emergency gun restriction orders have been used more times than during the full years of 2020, 2021, 2022 combined. And this is a quote: "The law has saved lives," former AG. All right. So
that's weird.
3 days difference, man. And the other the parroters of this information are saying 36 times it's been used in the last 3 days, and it's saving lives, when 3 days ago it couldn't do enough. Why the narrative changed? Right. I think it's because they're happy with the yellow flag law. They had a little powwow and they're like, well, what do we do with this one? Well, let's not talk them down. Let's not say they're ineffective. Let's say they're actually effective, so we can get more of them.
Nailed it. You just nailed it. And we are about to jump so hard on this, dude. I'm so proud to be here with you in this moment. You nailed that so hard, because what did we say when this was going down on this very channel? They were hitting on the fact that Giffords and Everytown and all the John Feinblatts, all the farthest lefties, Shannon Watts, they were all hitting on the idea that we needed red flag laws in Maine, until they realized that they did yellow flag laws. And the big problem that began being presented was it got too confusing, because you can't push against yellow flag laws, but you want red flag laws. The emphasis change comes on the actual color, not on what you're trying to do. It's going to be a losing battle. We said it on this channel. You're going to lose on this, because they're going to get so confused between red and yellow, and they're going to drop that narrative.
Right.
They were trying to push red because they want no due process, as many guns taken as possible. The yellow flag laws, and this is the key, the yellow flag laws have due process built in, and you have to actually go to an actual registered doctor. You have to actually register and work with the police. There are some processes of due process built into them, which is why they don't like them. Now, I'm not for them. Don't get it twisted.
No, absolutely not.
But what I'm saying is, they cannot have a differentiation split between yellow and red, because it's too close together. And so they come out running the risk of two things: looking like tyrants because yellow gives due process and red doesn't. And then it's also confusing their core constituency.
That's what it boils
Beautiful
down to,
pickup.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Beautiful pickup.
They were losing the narrative, and so they had to shift gears and come back at it at a different angle.
That's exactly right.
Because there's very little difference between the red and yellow flag laws. You talk there. There's an attempt to have more due process than the yellow flag laws, which is what was rubbing them wrong. They don't want you having due process. They just want to have some random person show up and make an accusation against you, and they'll just be able to take your stuff away.
Well, it's safety, Tim. It's for safety.
For the children. Yes, of course.
It's for the children and safety.
All right. So now let's get on to a really sad moment, folks. I feel really bad about this one. Number 11, Doc, we're going to go ahead and talk about this retirement. Well, it would seem that the old K12s school shooting database has had enough of being fact-checked and is now moving on to greener pastures, transitioning away from Twitter's cesspool of racism, because if you oppose gun control, obviously you're a racist.
Obviously.
And platform-enable misinformation, e.g. community notes. How would you like to get updates on shooting incidents and school safety content? And then he gives us an option there.
Right.
And of course, the comments are gold. But so Davey's retiring from Twitter, folks, because he's tired of us racists, fact-checking him with actual facts. I mean, a community note isn't just some random information. It has to be approved by a number of different people. And I'm actually a contributor. I actually vote on community notes. You have to go through a process, present links, and then you have to answer certain questions. And so it's actually a pretty good process. It's as good as you can get. It's like the jury system. It's not perfect, but it's as close as you're going to get. And so it's much better than any other system out there, because most other sites don't have a system like it. You can just post tripe and nobody can respond or fact check you. So
nice word drop. Nice. I like that.
All right.
Sorry. I was giving you compliments.
Well, thank you. But I want to compliment some of the posters that responded to his retirement announcement, number 12, Doc. Yeah, so I'll just let you guys take a look at some of these. It's pretty funny. Nobody supports Davey. They're just like, get out of here. Getting tired of being fact checked. You're tired of being called a liar. And then, of course, we have a nice little meme there with a recent statement made by Elon Musk. And of course, that's blurred out. But yeah. So people are not happy with his misinformation that he's spread. And he is one of the worst, as we've pointed out many times here on the channel. And it's just so ironic that he is accusing other people of using misinformation, forcing him off the platform because it's just racist. And yeah, no, he needs to go over to Threads or wherever where he can post in his echo chamber and everybody will,
Right.
sing Kumbaya and oh, you're so great, Davey.
Yeah, it's so weird that when the concepts and the narratives and the ideals of gun control goes out in the open on a fair playing field, it's so funny how it gets destroyed with facts so easily. And they really don't like. It's weird, Tim.
Yeah.
It's not the Twitter of yesteryear. It's not. It is
Nope.
not. Oh man, a leftist can't make a propaganda account anymore. What's the world coming to?
And it's crazy. They cannot stand free speech, folks. They simply cannot stand free speech. The left wants nothing to do with free speech. That's why they stomp their feet and scream foul every time somebody gives us. It doesn't happen all that often, but in this case, Elon Musk gave us a free speech platform. That was the whole shtick behind his acquisition of the platform.
Mm-hmm.
And now people can say pro and con. You can have an actual debate because Twitter before that was just deleting conservative voices. You didn't even have to say something that was controversial. You just had to expose yourself as a conservative, and there was a good chance if you had any type of following, you'd just be deleted. Well, that has changed now. Everybody, right and left, can have an open debate, but that's not what the left wants. They can't stand open debate because just like old Davey here, they get frustrated with facts being thrown at them.
Yeah.
And so they leave. They take their ball and go home.
That's exactly it. They've taken their ball and they are going home. Dude, that was such a good segment. I applaud you, sir. That was a very honorable retirement speech.
All right. Be sure you swing by and say, wish him all the best over on Twitter. Let him know what you think. Send Davey on his way with, a little party, if you will, on X. All right. But be nice. I'm not telling you to go over there and harass him. Don't harass him. All right, folks. Well, thank you for watching A Second Legacy, and we'll talk to you guys soon.